The knives are out for Gary Lineker again, this time because he shared a cartoon about Zionism, which at one point included an emoji of a cartoon rat. He deleted the post and unreservedly apologized. Of course, it's not enough for Israel's most avid defenders. And in the Telegraph, Jake Wallace-Simons has said it is too little, too late. Also in the Telegraph, Lineker has given a pretty powerful interview about why he won't stop speaking up for Gaza. So he told an interviewer at the paper that he believes if you are silent on Gaza, you are complicit. This is a quote from him. It's beyond depraved. What they're going through, unimaginable. I've got kids, they're grown up now, but every day people are losing their children, their brothers and sisters. I don't know how the world thinks this is okay. We still seem to be on the side of the people who are doing this. We're still supplying arms, and you think, wow, how? The vast majority of people see it for what it is now. Unfortunately, the government's not doing much about it. It comes down to power and money. But what we're allowing to happen is beyond the pale. So if you read the article, the Telegraph journalist is sort of constantly trying to catch him out and make out that Gary Lineker doesn't really know anything about the Middle East and shouldn't really be talking about this. So it's a slightly frustrating article. But Lineker was pushed on his thoughts on October the 7th, which, obviously the article frames as the reason this is all happening. So this is what Gary Lineker says. It has been completely out of proportion to what happened. Obviously, October the 7th was awful. But it's very important to know your history and to study the massacres that happened prior to this, many of them against the Palestinian people. Yes, Israelis have a right to defend themselves, but it appears that Palestinians don't, and that is where it's wrong. Palestinians are caged in this outdoor prison in Gaza, and now it's an outdoor prison that they're bombing. Israel say it's self-defense, but really? Self-defense against what now? Yes, I understand that they need to avenge, but I don't think they've helped their own hostage situation at all. People say it's a complex issue, but I don't think it is. It's inevitable that the Israeli occupation was going to cause massive problems, and I just feel for the Palestinians. The Telegraph sort of then suggested, won't you get a backlash for all of these completely reasonable things that you've said that no one in their right mind could disagree with? And this is what Gary Lineker says. I don't really care about the backlash. I care about doing the right thing, or what I think is the right thing. Some people can disagree, that's fine. But I have to look at myself in the mirror. I think if you're silent on these issues, you're almost complicit. Aaron, I think this is interesting for a number of reasons. I mean, one, I found that at this point, because what Israel are doing is so explicit and so appalling, that it's really actually, if you go into a TV studio, even like GB News, no one's really going to defend what Israel are doing now, right? It's really impossible. And I think we've moved on. I feel like who cares about this cartoon rat, right? I mean, sure, don't. I've seen the emoji. Probably that is associated with tropes, and Gary Lineker was right to delete it and apologize. Sure, but come on, let's get some perspective. And I think more and more people feel like that now. The other thing I was thinking though is just Gary Lineker is probably one of the most powerful celebrities in the country. We saw this. The BBC tried to take him off air, and literally. There were highlights that week, but there was the match of the day had no commentary, had no, analysis in between the matches. So you could just see this is a guy who, they have moved him on now, but the BBC, that he's their most highly paid guy, but he's also underpaid in the sense that if he went and sold his sort of skills to Sky, they'd pay him more. So he's got so much power, and he's willing to say this. How many people do you think have a bit less power than Gary Lineker and feel like they can't say it because they're not Gary Lineker? They're not someone who, if Jake Wallace-Simons or whoever he is, or the board of deputies try and get them cancelled, that could actually mean they can't pay their mortgage. Obviously, I assume Gary Lineker's already paid his mortgage outright. Some comments on this latest intervention from Gary Lineker. In a way, it's nothing new, but I think it's well put.
No, I think that's precisely right, Michael. I think having to delete that post, and yeah, he should delete it. Of course, he should. And he apologised. I think he should apologise because he has this huge profile. What really angers me, Michael, is when just regular people, like a primary school teacher, will be outed by a national newspaper. You shared something and it has a cartoon rat in the corner. Look, she doesn't need to have a PhD in sociology and have to, vet her social media output. Sorry, I find that ridiculous. But when it's somebody with his profile, okay, I get it. And I think you're right. The focus on this kind of stuff, or, from the river to the sea, the focus is done for a reason. It's in inverse correlation, actually, to how serious it is. It's completely unserious. But you need to talk about it, because otherwise you'll be talking about the fact that we've got at least 16,000 dead kids in Palestine. You have the World Health Organization saying that 5-year-old kids have the physical development of 2.5-year-olds. And it's really interesting what you say about people on the right. Very few people now are defending it. Very few people. I mean, even Donald Trump. Donald Trump is saying people are starving. Okay. I did GB News this week, actually, with a Tory pitch. She was defending it. She was sort of saying, her exact words were, nobody's starving in Gaza. And I said, the WHO. Now, you're welcome to say they're not credible. Anybody's welcome to say anything. You're welcome to say the WHO is not a credible organization, but the WHO has said this. She starts talking about UNRWA. I'm not saying UNRWA. I'm saying the WHO. Now, Trump said people are starving. Presumably, that won't be good enough either. But she's very much in the minority. The vast majority of people, including people on the right and the center right, I know because I talked to some of these people privately, Michael. They said, of course they're being starved. Of course it's ethnic cleansing. Of course this is ethnic cleansing. Of course we're seeing it in real time. But there are no incentives for them to be honest about it, Michael, particularly in the media game. If you're a pundit at the Telegraph, right, or in the Mail, what's the upside for you? There is no advantage there, career-wise, payment-wise. And on top of that, you get the Zionist lobby coming after you. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You know, Miss Rachel, one of the biggest kids' TV entertainers in the world, huge YouTube channel, huge. She's on Netflix too. There was a hit job on her, Michael, in the New York Times. The New York Times, and their only source is an anonymous Zionist account, Stop Anti-Semitism. And they're saying the Stop Anti-Semitism account claims that Miss Rachel, who works with Netflix, apparently is paid by Hamas. And then the NYT go, Ms. Rachel, are you paid by Hamas? And she rejects it. And of course, that goes into the article. She refutes the idea that she's paid by Hamas. This is a lady. And all she's done, Michael, is just to say that kids in Gaza, I see you, you matter, I love you. And she gets called, a terrorist sympathizer. And she's taking money from Hamas. This is the Zionist lobby. They've been doing this as a lobby since before the creation of Israel. But obviously now you've got state apparatus backing you up. So I can totally understand why somebody on the right would do it. At least on the left, you're not going to, broadly speaking, I don't mean The Guardian or whatever, but even The Guardian, you're probably not going to lose your job if you say something like this. But you on the right, you're going to alienate people, you're going to lose friends. Incredible statistic, Michael. Before the last general election, 70% of Conservative MPs were members of Conservative Friends of Israel. 70% of their MPs. Almost 3/4 of their MPs were ensconced within the wider Zionist lobbying infrastructure in this country. So it's really no surprise whatsoever. And I think what people articulate publicly is very different to what they're thinking on the inside. Believe me. I mean, look, I only speak to half a dozen people I have in mind on the centre right, the right. But they think very different things to perhaps what you might gather from public declarations. They don't say anything publicly, of course, but their colleagues do, or the guests do, and then you don't really know. It gets drowned out. I'm pretty sure most people with a brain, with a heart, obviously have massive problems with the fact that 5-year-old kids have the physical development of 2.5-year-olds. That 16,000 plus kids have been killed, have been murdered, and many more maimed. Many more, 3-4 times as many maimed physically, not psychologically. Most people have a problem with that. Of course they do. And the problem now for the Zionist lobby and for Israel is that it's literally being beamed directly to you. This is not the Hamas-backed Gaza Health Ministry. No, I'm literally seeing on my phone children being maimed, losing arms and legs. I can see it. I can see it. I'm not going to be told otherwise by some stupid lobbyist in New York or London. Sorry, those days are over. They're finished. And hence, just to go back to my original point, why there's this emphasis now on a rat on a TikTok or somebody saying from the river to the sea. Which, by the way, say what you want, and even if you do say something bad, it cannot be compared to murdering children, surely. And by the way, if a settler child in the West Bank, an Israeli settler child, is 5 or 6 years old, they're holding a gun, that child is just as innocent as a child who's 5 or 6 in Gaza posing with Hamas. Like, they're children. Surely we can agree on that. And by the way, we can. We can. And I'm not in any way suggesting that settlers are like Hamas. They're not. One is settling, one is a colonial exercise, the other is a people being occupied, Gaza. What I'm saying is that we all agree that children are innocent. A hell of a lot of work has to go into distracting us from that, Michael. A hell of a lot of work. And it's still not enough, right? Because people ultimately see for themselves that kids are suffering.